In this reading, I want to challenge a common assumption. Identity exploration or moratorium is something that happens only in the teenage years. Many of us picture identity work as a rite of passage that ends once someone chooses a career, marries, or settles into a role. I will argue that moratorium can be a normative, recurring stage across the lifespan. I will explain two foundational theories in developmental psychology and show how they support a lifelong view of identity work, and describe why adolescent commitments are often inauthentic, and then outline practical implications for individuals and institutions. So first we're going to take a look at Eriksons theory and James Marcia's identity status model. So Erikson proposed a psychosocial theory of human development organized into 8 stages that span from infancy to old age. Each of these stages centers on a core conflict or task that must be negotiated. Successful negotiation yields a psychological strength that supports later development, while unresolved conflicts can resurface when life circumstances change. The stage most often associated with identity is identity versus role confusion, which Erikson highlighted in Adolescents. But crucially, Erikson framed development as a lifespan process. Earlier resolutions influence later stages, and later life transitions can reopen earlier tasks. In other words, identity is not a single checkpoint to be passed and forgotten. It is a recurring theme that can be revisited whenever new roles, losses, or opportunities demand fresh answers. Erikson's emphasis on social context matters here. Identity emerges in relation to family, peers, institutions, and culture. When those contexts shift through migration, career change, parenthood, or social upheaval, the psychosocial demands change too. Erikson's model therefore predicts that identity work can reappear across adulthood, not only in adolescence. Now let's focus on Marcia's identity status model. James Marcia translated Erikson's broad ideas into a practical, testable framework by focusing on 2 dimensions: exploration and commitment. Exploration means actively considering alternatives, testing roles, and reflecting on values. Commitment means making choices and investing in particular roles or beliefs. From the intersection of these dimensions, Marcia identified 4 identity statuses. Diffusion, which describes low exploration and low commitment. Foreclosure, which describes low exploration but high commitment, often reflecting acceptance of roles handed down by family or culture. Moratorium, which describes high exploration with low commitment, which is a period of active searching. And then achievement, which describes high exploration followed by high commitment, where choices are both considered and embraced. Marcia's model is status-based, not age-based. People can move between statuses as their levels of exploration and commitment change. A person who is foreclosed in one domain at 18 may enter moratorium in that domain at 30, when circumstances prompt re-examination. This fluidity makes Marcia's model especially useful for understanding identity across the lifespan. So here's the argument for lifelong moratorium. If we combine Erikson and Marcia in the case for lifelong moratorium, combining Erikson and Marcia in the case for lifelong moratorium becomes clear. Erikson gives us the lifespan scaffolding. Identity is a psychosocial task that can be reopened by new life demands. Marcia gives us the mechanism. Exploration and commitment can change independently in different domains, producing shifts in identity status at any age. There are 3 linked reasons moratorium can be normative across adulthood. First, identity is multidimensional. People can be achieved in one domain and still exploring in another. A person may feel settled in family roles but question career direction, or be confident politically but uncertain spiritually. Because domains change at different rates, moratoria can recur. Second, many adolescent commitments are foreclosed rather than achieved. Social institutions, family expectations, school systems, cultural scripts often channel young people into roles without encouraging genuine exploration. Those foreclosed commitments can appear stable but lack internal endorsement. When life events or new information challenge those roles, adults commonly re-enter moratorium to test alternatives and seek authenticity. Third, contemporary social and economic conditions make prolonged or repeated moratoria more likely. Delayed economic milestones, precarious labor markets, longer educational trajectories, and the cultural premium on authenticity all push identity work beyond adolescence. Social media amplifies exposure to alternative lifestyles and increases the visibility of identity experimentation, making commitments feel provisional and subject to public scrutiny. For many millennials and members of Generation Z, identity work is not a one-time project, but an ongoing negotiation. And let me illustrate these now with 2 brief examples. 1. A 35-year-old who accepted a stable corporate career at 22 may, after a decade, find that the role no longer aligns with evolving values. A personal loss or a new interest in community work can trigger renewed exploration. That adult moratorium is not a failure. It is a response to changed circumstances and a search for a more authentic commitment. A 24-year-old who adopted religious or political beliefs from family may encounter diverse perspectives in college or online. Exposure to alternatives can prompt a period of questioning and experimentation. This moratorium can lead to a more personally meaningful stance or to a recommitment that is now self-authored rather than inherited. These examples point to practical implications. Education and career services should support exploration across the lifespan, not only in late adolescence. Mental health professionals should normalize adult identity work and help distinguish productive exploration from chronic diffusion. Employers and policymakers should design systems that allow for career transitions and retaining and retraining without stigma. It is also important to draw a clear distinction between productive moratorium and chronic diffusion. Productive moratorium involves intentional exploration, reflection, and eventual recommitment. It can be energizing and growth-oriented. Chronic diffusion, by contrast, is characterized by avoidance, lack of direction, and distress. Arguing that moratorium can be lifelong does not mean endorsing perpetual uncertainty as an idea. The goal is to normalize exploration while supporting people in finding commitments that feel authentic and sustainable to them. So in conclusion, identity exploration is not necessarily a teenage problem to be solved and forgotten. Eriksons' lifespan perspective and Marcia's exploration and commitment framework together support the view that moratorium can recur across adulthood. Many adolescent commitments are shaped by social pressures and may later be revised. Contemporary economic and cultural forces make prolonged or repeated moratorium more common, especially among younger cohorts facing delayed milestones and intense public scrutiny of identity. If we accept moratorium as a potential lifelong stage, we can reframe institutions and relationships to support ongoing exploration. We can help people see their doubts not as failures, but as part of a normal developmental process. Curiosity about who we are becomes a lifelong skill rather than a teenage crisis.